Hello and welcome everyone to the fourth episode of SEO Surgery in India. Well, today it's awesome day here. I mean, it's sunny outside for a change, and I'm really happy and in very good mood because of weather, first thing, and the three websites that we have picked, our experts just love them, and they're really happy and excited to share all their findings. Well, so about the experts, so we have Jason Barnard with us from the wonderful France, and then we have Aiden Carroll from the UK, and we have Satish from India. Well, these are the three experts we have today for the show, and they'll be talking about three websites, which I'm not going to reveal right now. So wait and watch, yeah? Okay, so now I would like to invite these guys, these experts to introduce themselves because I don't want to spend time introducing themselves because they are like hugely experienced, amazing guys. For example, Jason, I mean, he has SEO experience, industry experience of more than 20 years. Well, that's more or less my age. So, Jason, could you please introduce yourself now?
Yeah, I started in the internet in '98. Actually developed a website for small children, preschool kids, this big. And we ended up with 100 million page views a month and 5 million visits a month with 1 million from Google. And from that, once that was over, I segued over into full-time SEO. And I've been doing that now for 10 years. Really enjoy doing it. I do a lot of talking, a lot of conferences, a lot of writing. I write for Semrush. I've got a column there. So if anyone's interested in what I've got to say, please go along and read my column. I write about one a month. And then I do consulting, which I love too. So wonderful.
Great. Thank you so much, Jason. Wonderful having you here. I'm like super excited to hear your thoughts on the website that you have audited. And Jason, can I call you like father of knowledge graphs? Because I think whenever I think about knowledge graphs, you are the only name that comes to my head. And I think you are doing tremendous job there. Would you like to talk about that as well?
Thank you. Yeah, I started working on the knowledge graph, or not a knowledge graph. I started investigating it 5 or 6 years ago. Because I was interested in how I appeared in Google. I was a musician before, then I did cartoons, now I'm doing SEO. And so I looked at how the knowledge graph understood me as a musician, then me as a cartoon maker, and now me as an SEO consultant. And I set up Calicube, and I track 30,000 brands, and I track how Google understands them and how Google perceives their credibility. And I've got a little API if anyone wants to go to calicube.pro. There's a little tool where you can check if you're in the knowledge graph. It's a really nice little tool that I've now integrated into a bigger measure of understanding and credibility from Google. And you'll see in the talk I give in the analysis right at the end, I can't help but come back to that and talk about understanding and credibility and the knowledge graph. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jason. Really looking forward to it. All right. Once again, welcome, Jason. And moving to the next guest, next expert, who is Aiden Carroll from the UK, and he's doing a lot of stuff. So he's the co-founder of the coloring in department. Well, that's so colorful. I think his presentation, his slides will, reflect that. So you can check in a while. And then he's lead instructor digital marketing. Well, Aiden, why don't you introduce yourself? Because I don't want to spend a lot of time on introducing you, yeah?
Oh, don't. You'll just embarrass me. But to be fair, it's really difficult to follow Jason because, as you say, master of the knowledge graph. And it's kind of difficult to kind of really top that, perfectly honest. I like talking about digital marketing. I'm a full stack marketer, I suppose, so search marketing is one of my things, as it were. But indeed, I'm really pleased to be in such kind of lauded company as you guys, and of course to come and talk about some stuff, particularly with very interesting websites that you selected. But I'm a digital marketing trainer by practice, by trade, so I spend a great deal of time talking about it for General Assembly. I originally created the Squared program, etc., etc., etc. I'm kind of an ex-Googler gone rogue. I'm an ex-Amazonian gone rogue. I'm an ex-everything gone rogue. You can kind of take from that what you will, rogue-wise. But indeed, it's been a really interesting experience, I think, for all of us, and I'm pretty buzzed to get going with, of course, our audits. thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much, Aiden. Guys, did you hear? He mentioned ex-Googler. So I'm hoping a lot of questions coming his way today. So let's see how he handles that. All right. And Aiden, what's your favorite SEO aspect these days? What are you working on currently?
For me, to be perfectly honest, I'm a bit obsessed with customer empathy. That might come out a little bit later in the deck. A bit like with Jason and the knowledge graph and credibility, I am obsessed with empathy. So I like thinking really about how we can actually reach customers, users across the customer journey. So I kind of get really involved, hopefully not overly involved, in keyword research and suck up all of Satish's time. So I'll behave, but that's definitely where I'm at the moment anyway, as this particularly, I suppose, robust piece of something I'm obsessed with right now.
Cool. Thank you so much, Aiden. And once again, welcome to the show. All right. And then the last but not the least guest for the show is Satish Kumar from Pyrite Technologies. He's a SEO there. And now, Satish, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, Nitin. Hi, everyone. So I'm Satish, and I've been doing SEO since like 10 years. Not an expert in everything, but I love doing link building. I love doing one page, and particularly the content. So I really, I have a lot of interest to learn knowledge graph and the design elements of it and how JavaScript works and all. So I'll be super interested to listen to Jason today and share the views with him. And I'll be talking a lot about like link building and the best practices and the on-page, like how you can actually optimize your site and make it ready for like ranking. So this will be like very interesting event. And I think maybe I should also talk a little bit about Nitin Manchanda here. So he's an expert himself. So I love his, the way he audits his websites, and he's handling like very big client. So we have to, in the middle also, we'll ask some questions with Nitin if possible. So maybe we would love to learn something from you. And I specialize in handling corporate clients, like information technology. I don't want to name my clients, but I do handle the corporate digital marketing, especially like social media, SEO, and content. And we have worked with like a lot of clients. And also e-commerce SEO is my passion. So I wish I can hope, I'm hoping myself to share a lot of information today. So let's see how it goes. Over to you, Nitin.
Thank you so much, Satish. Wonderful having you. And thank you so much for the nice words. I'm blushing already. Thank you so much. All right, guys. And I'm Nitin Manchanda. I'm working at Trivago. I'm originally from India and based in Germany these days. And yeah, that's it about me. I love technical SEO. And so now I would like to, first of all, I would like to thank you all for the wonderful response that you have been showing for the entire series. Thank you so much once again for the amazing response. We got a lot of sites and we picked 3 of them, like the agenda. That's what the agenda of this show. So apologies to the rest of you who submitted their websites, but they are not picked. But feel free to ask your questions here. And if your questions are not answered because of time constraint, you feel free to reach, any one of us on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Yeah. Okay. So now I would like to move to the real stuff that you all are waiting for and not waste time here with introductions anymore. So let's move to the real stuff, and let's start with the very first website of the day of the show, which is eatreat.in. And Jason would be putting some light on that from SEO perspective. So Jason, it's all yours now.
Thank you. Here we go. Right. Nitin gave me eattreat.in. I was kind of annoyed with him yesterday because it's quite a difficult site. However, it's a really nice site to do because personally, I felt very hungry pretty much all throughout the audit. So really good looking site. Really nicely set out. I felt it was a very good user experience. That's really, really positive. I felt that the navigation was perhaps a little bit light, both for the user, but also for Google. Actually being able to navigate around the site seemed to me immediately on coming to that homepage, seemed to me problematic. When you start scrolling, it's got this infinite scroll. I'm personally not a fan of that. It makes Google's job a little bit difficult, and you need to be very careful about how well you do it. And I'm not really sure how well this site has done it. From a user perspective, not having the menu at the top was kind of annoying. But you know, that's nitpicking. I don't think that's an enormous problem. The big problem, crawlability. This is the entire source code of their page. They've gone right outside the box. They're using Webpack JSON P, which I was particularly pleased about because I get to say my name again. And what it does is it loads all this JavaScript, and then it creates the page dynamically once this JavaScript is loaded. Really neat and tidy, really smartly done. But is it good for SEO? Here's a crawl I did with Semrush. I started off on the homepage. It managed to crawl 4 pages. But it's all JavaScript and CSS. So in fact, it only crawled 1. So we got 100% crawlability, which is a complete lie. Sorry, back to that one. It's a complete lie just in the sense that we didn't manage to crawl the pages. For tools, this was an enormous problem. Then if we look at the speed, as you saw, there was very little in that page. There was just the HTML page plus a few JavaScript and CSS, and it still isn't particularly fast. And if you look down the bottom here, we can see the optimization suggestions. They're talking about enabling compression, leave a browser caching, and minify CSS. Terrible score. Given the fact that they only have 5 or 6 files of JavaScript and CSS, they haven't compressed them, they haven't minified them. We get an awful score for actually a very simple page. And if you look on the right, we get a blank screen. Google can't see the content. If we look at the speed of the site, if we look at the industry, right down the bottom there, I find that very surprising that a site that's got so little in a page should end up being so slow. Here's the detail of what Google says they need to do. We're looking at compressing, using browser caching, and minifying the CSS. And as you can see, or perhaps you can't because it's very small, we're looking at 66, 77% reduction in file size using compression. And expiration for the browser caching, isn't even specified. No HTTP 2, that's a real pity, although in this particular case, it probably isn't very important because there are so few files. I would recommend turning it on anyway. There's no reason today, in my opinion, not to turn on HTTP 2 once you've switched to SSL. So in general, whether you're eattreats.in or anybody else, have a look at that with your hosting platform. Beer. The images. Sorry, I thought I saw beer and I should have said images. The images are not optimized. If we look here, we can immediately, if looking at my favorite tool, which is TinyPNG, immediately knock off another 27%. This is looking deeper into it because, in fact, once the page has loaded, as we saw earlier on, you get all the images, you get all the text. So it still does make a difference. The perception, in order to actually get hold of the content and actually look at how Google was perceiving it, I had to use Lighthouse. And we see that the perception isn't great, but it isn't too bad either. Chrome, can actually display the page correctly, and 11 seconds for that first perception of first meaningful paint is not great, but it's certainly not the worst I've seen. And if you look at the metrics, you're actually a lot worse than The Guardian. I used The Guardian and made a purposeful spelling mistake because they have always been famous for making typos. They're very fast. The Guardian is a really good benchmark. If The Guardian can do it, you can do it. Guardian gets a very good score. And then if I look at AI.Google, which is obviously well optimized, they're actually not that brilliant, but in terms of the amount of content, but they're certainly better than Eaton.India. That's the overall scores. I won't go into detail here, but as we can see, the performance is absolutely a problem. So it can't crawl. It's got bad performance. Doesn't even have the robots. I get a 404 not found when I go to the robots, but they have actually got a sitemap. But I had to actually guess where the sitemap was. Now, I assume these guys have submitted the sitemap through Search Console, so that isn't a problem. They've got the homepage as a priority of 0.8 and all the others at 1. I would advise them to actually prioritize better. According to Google, it doesn't make much difference, but it seems to me to be something that you can do that certainly doesn't do any harm. And when I look at these URLs, if we go back to the usability side of things, is that it's not categorized. Everything's at root level. I've heard or I've seen clients who have said to me, I've been told to put everything at root level because that makes it better for SEO. That's not true. The problem we have here is that there's no categorization in the URL. And I'm a big fan of breaking sites down into categories using the URL because it helps Google to understand what the hierarchy of the site is. So that's a small point about this, but we have the sitemap. And so Google can actually crawl it. Now, what we see here is on the left, we see the crawl I did without giving Semrush the sitemap, and then the crawl with the sitemap. And as we can see, we crawled 3,015 pages and we got 3,001 issues. 3,015 pages, 3,001 with a duplicate title tag, 11 incorrect pages in the sitemap. Now, if Google can't crawl your site, the minimum you can do is give it a correct sitemap. So that's something I would definitely correct. And the duplicate title tags is because every single title tag is eat treat. So I would advise them to update their title tags page by page. Here we see every single crawled page has a problem with the uncompressed JavaScript once again, the unminified. It's saying low word count because it's seeing only the JavaScript. It doesn't see the content. So Semrush and Screaming Frog can't get the content. Google can. Eat Treat are making their own life very difficult. Here we have the meta title. Every single one is Eat Treat. We have every single page with exactly the same title. Most tools can't handle this, but Google can. Google's managing to pull the content out. And when I search for a particular page, it comes up with a nice title and a nice description and even the date. So it's able to load that JavaScript. My big worry about that is that although Google can do this, it takes a lot of resources and it doesn't necessarily want to. I look at Google as a commercial institution, a commercial company. Every time they have to pass your JavaScript, it costs them a little bit more money. Bringing in HTML costs very little. So you're creating a situation where crawling your site costs Google more money. If you cost them more money, they're unlikely to do you any big favors. And so what it's doing here is it doesn't have a meta title, it doesn't have a meta description, so it's actually just picking up the content it can and making them up as it goes along from the content you've provided. Generally, it's doing it really well. And here, it's actually pasted two sentences together to make the title because there was no obvious title for it. I found this incredibly interesting because you see how well Google manages to pick up content to actually make very good meta titles and descriptions. But what Eat Treat are doing is giving away that control to Google. And that's, in my opinion, a mistake. Google's doing a good job, but I would have thought a copywriter would do a much better job using exactly the right keywords, but also having a call to action at the end of the meta description. So they made a big, big, big bet. On the 6th of January, that was the site. HTML, it was normal, just like every other site, probably very easy to crawl for Google. The 18th of January, it changed to this one. So they took a big bet somewhere at the beginning of January and switched their site from being HTML to JavaScript driven. And yet, their traffic boomed. They really, really, really took off. So having criticized them all the way through, I can now say, actually, hey, it worked out. Whether it was luck or whether it's skill, there's a big question. I suspect it was technically something they really wanted to do. So they went through with it, and it was more luck than skill. But I don't know. So we'll go on to what they could now do, and I'm going to try and be really quick because I'm running out of time. Schema, that's my favorite. They don't use schema. That's a really big pity, especially as they could use all these. They've got tourist attractions, places of interest, stores, nightclubs, restaurants, events, questions, how-to actions. Enormous amount of schema markup they could be putting in there, which would help Google understand their site, what it is they're offering, and what it is they're presenting. This is an example. They've got Jungle Jamboree, which is a restaurant. They've got lots of information with a telephone number, the timings, and so on and so forth. And they could actually do some nice schema markup to indicate exactly who they're talking about. So using main entity, I would advise them not to put the times or data that might change. Better to put a link through to the site. And they could create an internal rating system which would allow them to rate these people that they're talking about. That's obviously quite a big job. Position 0, enormous opportunities once again. They've got what is the difference between champagne and sparkling wine. They have a page that answers exactly that question, but they're being beaten by this very ugly courtage site from France, ironically. All they need to do, and this is a good example of meta title, meta description, is write the meta title, write the meta description, and structure their page better so that they're actually A, presenting the information to Google better, but B, actually asking and answering the questions that people are asking. Here, what's the difference between champagne and sparkling wine is not actually in the page. I had to write eat treats to actually get that to come up. How to pour beer. That's a really easy position 0 for them to get because they've got a very powerful site with a very interesting article about it. They could do videos as well. That's becoming more and more popular, especially in the position 0 space. Once again, they need to structure. HTML5 does a very good job about that. You identify the article, the main content, you put a figure for the images so that it can pull the images more easily and identify that the images are part of the flow of the content, and then add a size to identify the content that's related or slightly related to the main content. So we're looking here for positions that are using the right vocabulary, formulating the questions correctly, using anchors in your page with a little list of links at the top, HTML5 and schema. Backlinks, 311. I won't talk about that because I know that somebody else on this committee is much more interested in that. Not my big subject, but they do have a reference in Wikipedia, which we'll see is very important. When we look at the wider picture of the brand, here, when we search for their brand name, actually their Facebook page comes up before their website. Here we have some problems.
One minute, Jason.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, 3 more slides.
Okay, sure.
Sorry. As a brand, they should be getting extended site links. Google isn't giving them. It doesn't fully understand them. They started off with Facebook, which is why Facebook's coming up on top. They really should be writing the meta descriptions and titles properly. Here we look at why Facebook comes out on top. I think they should be looking to beat that. They're mentioned in Wikipedia. Here I found the mention. But in a wider brand of things, they need to communicate much more and they need to convince Google. So I would be looking at, from my point of view, the schema market, the HTML5, and really making a big noise about who they are because they are a big brand, but mostly on Facebook, they need now to convince Google. So we're looking at understanding and credibility, which is my favorite topic, as I said earlier on. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jason. That was a lot, but you took more than expected time. Well, thank you so much. That was really amazing indeed. All right. So now I would quickly ask Satish and Aiden if you have something to add here, which Jason couldn't cover because of time constraints.
Okay, I think, Aiden, you have anything to say?
I mean, I agree with Jason kind of across the board in truth. I always make kind of the addition, I suppose, with the title tags and the meta descriptions. I'm sort of obsessed with those. So forgive me, Jason, for getting stuck into those. You know, of course, we have all those extra characters now, and there's just so much room there to kind of speak like a human being, get people, of course, interested in the quality of the actual content. The content itself looks pretty impressive, in truth. But as Jason says, you know, no schema markup, weak on the title tags, weak on the meta descriptions. It might be, yes, you're getting organic traffic because Google, for some reason, by hook or by crook, by luck or by skill, has, of course, produced more traffic, as Jason puts it. But actually, in reality, in some ways, actually, that experience for users still a little bit kind of broken, in my view. And yes, you know, we know Google doesn't love crawling JavaScript realistically. So yeah. HTML5, FTR. But I don't know if you have anything you would add to that, Satish. That was my big kind of takeaway.
Okay, I think that's awesome. You know, Aiden. What I found, in fact, in the link structure is, so I'll just show you the screen. So the thing is that if you can see here, there is a spike of traffic in, I think probably in the mid of February. And after that, it continued for another month. And after that, there was a huge drop in, not huge, but drop maybe around 30%, not even 30%, roughly around 20% drop. That is because suddenly you can see like a lot of links are being built in the month of, say, February. I mean, like, you know, last year. As like, you know, whatever links you build in Google, they won't get indexed immediately. They take their own sweet time. So this particular month in May 2017, I think the last year, they have suddenly domains coming up from like 273 different domains. So that gave a spark to Google, like, to consider like something fishy is happening. So probably all these links again got disappeared. But there is something in this section which really annoyed Google. So I think now it's impacting in their, the entire progress. And also, if you can see, in a month, they're getting a lot of backlinks from tag titles, like not so important pages. Like you can see the detail pages, like if you go to this particular date, which is on 19 March 2018, like probably like a month back, you can see that they're getting a lot of backlinks from, unwanted pages. Like, they have another domain, by the way, like eatread.co.in, and they're interlinking their links and also they're deleting. So that is causing a lot of spark in the rankings. And also Google might be like, hey, I think you have to redirect. Probably with like 301, which they realize it at a later point of time. But this kind of link structure is very bad. And also, if you observe, like they have a lot of other links which are not really important, but they still have it, like tag pages and like site-wide pages and link exchanges. So that is very, very harmful for the website. Like I think I'm assuming the first two sites are owned by the owner itself. Like they might be just redirecting it to the main domain. So this is something which they should stop doing, and probably they should start building, because their page influence is like very low. If you can check here, and the domain influence is very average. So their do follow and no follow links are also not so good. So I think probably by focusing on some backlinks, like building really good keywords, because if you check, this keyword is a much high search volume keyword, like breezer.com. Breezer, it's like almost like 100,000 traffic. So if they can rank #1 for this position, I think probably they were at 5. Once they were losing the position to like 7, they lost a lot of traffic. So if they gain back this position to 5, I think the traffic will be built back. So I think that they should focus more on building quality backlinks, which I'm 100% sure they're not building. And they should stop linking to their own domains, like owned by their own domains, which can cause you serious penalties if Google sees it going forward. And also because these two domains will obviously not have any trust flow. So you should really work on that. That's my take.
Cool. Thank you so much, Satish. That was interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's enough for this website, eatread.in. And I think all the experts, all the surgeons have done a wonderful job here. And having said that, we are moving to the next website, which is hacker.io. And the surgeon who would be working on this website is Aiden Carroll. So Aiden, it's all yours now.
Awesome. Thanks. And indeed, of course, it's kind of a hard gig to follow, really, that one in truth. But there we go. Yeah. We'll do our very best to make it so. I thought this site was really interesting initially. And I planned to do a couple of different things with it, and then I ended up doing something completely different with it. And I'll explain why that's the case. But I kind of really want to make one thing clear kind of upfront about this stuff, because it's very difficult, I guess, to give people your website to audit and kind of to open yourself up to public support and condemnation from the likes of myself and Jason, Satish, and Nitin. I think it's really hard to get all of this right, in truth. And everybody has a very different perspective about it. Websites are icebergs at the end of the day. People only really see the stuff that's visible. Your homepage, your blog, your product pages. And there's huge amounts else that's going on there, kind of as evidenced by Jason and, of course, then by Satish in terms of the link building piece. That being said, I think it's a little bit like war and a little bit like gardening at the same time. So it's a bloodbath because you're constantly competing with people and you're always being compared. Even the tools that we use are comparative in nature. But it's also a little bit like gardening because you kind of have to stick with it. It is always very experimental. It is always changing. It is always being improved. And I can even see a little bit earlier some of the questions coming in from YouTube, from Rohan posting in some questions around mobile first crawling, around changes to the algorithm, around things like canonical, and they're always changing too. So it's something that will change probably even within the confines of this particular session, this singular little hour. That said, a few things to do in terms of your gardening, I think, for hacker.io. First thing that leaped out at me, not even deliberately, was this idea of subdomains. Now, it's an interesting site because, of course, it helps to help people find courses about programming. So of course, learn to code. And of course, there's stuff around design. So learn to design, learn to use Adobe products, things like that. And then there's also this kind of random element about cooking, recipes, how to make the perfect French cuisine, how to make Jason happy. But indeed, I think really the issue here, for the most part, and it's something that came up really, something that John Mueller said the other day, talking really about how things are kind of shifting. And actually, you're better to go with this, I guess, subdomain rather than just subdirectory. And I think that's probably the perfect example within the confines of this site, because we have our hacker.io, that's all about programming. We've got our hacker cooking, hacker.io design, about these respective kind of themes, these respective kind of trends. But it might be a worthwhile addition, I think, to think about the subdomain end of things. And it's the same for many websites.
Aiden, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yours, I mean, I can see the first slide of your presentation. Are you not moving it at all, or is that something that you plan to do now?
Is it not moving through now?
No, nothing. I can just see the first slide.
Let me try that again.
Yeah, now it's working. Yeah, now it's working.
It's working now. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do it this way. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Moving, Nitin, just to check.
Yeah, it's right now I can see this gardening tip 2.
Okay. So
is that the one you're intending?
Nope, it is not the one I'm intending. Okay.
No, that is not working.
Yeah, something's going on there.
Yeah.
We'll do it a slightly different way then. I'll just close these up. And we'll do them in a very manual way.
Perfect. That works.
That works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
So first thing to repeat, I guess, around this idea of the subdomain element. Talking about this idea of programming, and of course around design, and of course around cooking as well. We are kind of in a position whereby we're thinking about how we structure our sites. And the point really was there on that first kind of gardening tip was this notion of, hey, do we build a subdomain or are we going with subdirectory? And commonly enough, we go with directory because it's easier, it's faster, it doesn't take as long. But indeed, now we're thinking about, hey, should we actually just go with the subdomains instead? So cooking.hacker.io. Because there's 3 kind of very categorically different elements to this particular website. And loads of companies, admittedly, use this kind of structure in truth. You know, it's separate portions of the website that are extensive enough in some ways to warrant their own dedicated hierarchy, you know, without going through all the trouble of setting up all these different root domains. But really, even Google does it to some extent itself with its support pages, so support.google. But the suggestion really is that subdirectories are fine, and it's fine, but subdomains are better, particularly when the categories are very, very different. Cooking is quite different from programming, I would argue, at least in some contexts. But to kind of move on to our next point, because I don't want to repeat anything too much, notwithstanding that little technical error, we're thinking about this idea of course, XMLs and indeed sitemaps, sort of the second thing that came out. And a little bit like what Jason mentioned in his audit as well, there kind of are these 2 kinds of pages in the world, I think, for me. You know, ones that are about utility and ones that are just really sexy, full of really good content that are really kind of cool, interesting for Google, schema markup, the works, your images, your structure, all that sort of stuff is in play. And I think really one of the very common mistakes that I see clients make an awful lot is in this notion of, hey, I'll just put in robot.txt, and of course I'll include it in an XML sitemap, but you know, you're kind of being, I suppose, contradictory in some ways when you exclude pages that are in the sitemap that you, of course, are disallowing in the robots.txt. But for the purposes of hacker, I guess, are utility pages that are useful, you know, but of course, our high-quality search landing pages being different. Now, the XML file here, again, presumably submitted through Search Console, it's really around, it's quite small, is what I would say, is the first thing. And indeed, it pertains to, of course, itemized elements like news, users, tutorials, recipes, but doesn't break down the programming nor the design in the same kind of way, as it were. And in doing that, I guess, it kind of leaves Google or Google's impression of the site sort of open to interpretation. And because Google is going to use whatever we submit in the sitemap as a clue to what's important in the site, Google will probably think here that cuisines, recipes, dishes are important in the site. And I stress that there's nothing wrong explicitly with this particular sitemap, but I would suggest that maybe we break it up that little bit more. So individual sitemaps for particular elements or product categories or course categories. So breaking up the cooking, breaking up the design, breaking up the programming, and remembering that we are allowed to do this to a great degree. You don't necessarily just need one sitemap. You know, it's absolutely fine to have any myriad number, provided, of course, that they add some use and add some value. So that would kind of be the point that I would make about the sitemap element of this particular site. But I stress that the sitemap is not wrong. I want to make that really clear. So for hacker guys, if you are listening, but if you were going to optimize it, you know, you're thinking more about sequential processes. Products from multiple categories in individual sitemaps tends to work better. So categorization by type, I guess, more than anything else. But it's not an easy exercise either. You know, it requires a really hard look at the site's architecture, the URL naming conventions, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in most cases, but it really does add tremendous value if you put the thought into that end of the information architecture as well. I think the third point really on this particular site is, of course, this robots.txt file, kind of building on what we just said. Now, I'm a big fan of robots.txt. This site does not have one, or at least not one that I could find, a bit like Jason's example earlier on. And for me, really, it's such an important file, even if you are allowing everything in truth. You know, within that, of course, root directory, it provides, of course, our Googles, our Bings, our Yahoos, our Yandexes, our Baidus, you know, really important directives regarding how this site should be crawled, specific pages or indeed directories to the entire site. And given, you know, the potential disaster that we often associate with robots.txt files, wiping our sites off the face of the earth, and there's a very famous example of BMW in Germany doing this, we tend to kind of fear it a little bit in marketing and even in search. So it's not really recommended, I don't think, in my opinion, to prevent the indexing of site content that has good quality inbound links. So for instance, if we were to follow something like the approach Satish just outlined around link building, then we wouldn't want to be excluding pages using robots.txt. But I mean, at the same time, you know, we think about this in three kind of big categories. So our full allow, our full disallow, and our conditional allow. And basically, I always think about it like a bouncer. And they kind of decide in some ways what is crawled, what is not. And indeed, full allow, of course, being all content, full disallow, no content, which of course don't do that for the most part. And our conditional allow around, you know, directives that are more specific to certain content. But this particular site, I'm very happy to say, isn't actually that bad with regards to this. And you can see here, even having a little run through it in the Screaming Frog tool, there is no robots.txt file, so there's very little being blocked in truth. You can see, of course, the status codes being listed, all mostly 200s here, so we're pretty much all okay, you know, given that there is no robots.txt. And indeed, we're thinking really generally about how we can make the most of some of the errors. And there are some permanent redirects, there are some basic errors, but there's nothing major. And I think it's important to point that out because actually they've done a reasonably good job with this site, but would benefit from the combination of a better, of course, sitemap, both in terms of XML, in terms of front end, and indeed supported by a robots.txt file as well. Point 5. Point 4, should I say, not point 5. I repeated point 1.
Aiden, just a reminder, you have just 1 minute left.
Cool, fantastic. Thanks, Nitin. These ones are quick. And indeed, I mentioned this anyway in support of what Jason said around metas and, of course, around title tags. And this particular site has extremely long meta descriptions, in truth. And whilst I can kind of see at a glance they've tried to be add a little bit of color and flavor around, hey, what's this actual page about? It doesn't do the world's greatest job of it, I don't think. And the same is the case with the title tags, actually, as well. Some of them are overly long and overly unwieldy, but while structured fine, so of course, what does this page do, and our brand name, etc., they are longer than they ought to be, in my opinion. So I would look at shortening quite a number of those up. But to speak through the last kind of couple of bits, site speed, this came as a bit of a surprise to me, so I thought I would add it in. Site speed on this particular site is not amazing, in truth. It's not the worst in the world, but not amazing. And the big issue here really is the lack of minified scripts. And so we're kind of almost coming full circle back to this JavaScript point that we've already been talking about in this session. But it's worth noting, of course, that things like that will matter. And indeed, of course, we can think about leveraging browser caching to make that a little bit better. But because I'm time pressured, last piece, customer empathy, and I'll kind of skip through a little bit here. This particular site thinks really predominantly about this idea of the most aware, the product aware stuff to some extent. So, hey, learn this course, learn this recipe. What it doesn't do from a content perspective is think about the pains and the problems and the solutions. And this is a model that we've recently invented called the consumer cross-stitch, and it's really around how do we plot out what our actual customer's journey might look like and build pages that support that. And of course, then rolling that into both sitemaps, title tags, meta descriptions, and so on, rather than assuming, of course, that people are just simply searching for a course. Do that, and of course, there is peace in the garden, or at least until the next algorithm update. But that kind of brings me really neatly to a close. If you need anything, any questions, any follow-up, or if you want a copy of the deck, bit.ly link in there. But indeed, with that, I shall be quiet before Nitin throws me under a bus.
Well, thank you so much, Aiden. That was amazing. I mean, wonderful content, and I would say I have never seen this beautiful presentation slide ever. I mean, so beautiful. Can I get a template of that, please?
I'm blaming Google products.
Well, that's amazing. Lovely stuff, man. Thank you so much, Aiden. And now, Satish and Jason, do you have something to add here, which Jason couldn't because of my pressure, time constraint? Yeah. But guys, you also have time pressure. Yeah, you have just 1 minute to share your findings. So yeah,
I'll keep this really short. I do apologize for earlier on. I got a bit over ambitious. Yeah. Really great stuff, Aiden. I really like that. I would come on to my personal pet topic. HTML5 and schema markup. They do use schema markup, but I found quite a lot of errors in them. They don't use HTML5. I would advise them to use that. I think their content typically is going to be helped a great deal by HTML5 and schema markup. My other comment, last comment, is on the meta description. There was a question about that. What's the optimal length? I think there's a great deal of disagreement on this, and I agree that the 200 character limit is probably safe to stick to, but there's a really nice trick, which is to do basically two different meta descriptions. So you have one of 200, then another of 200, both of which contain the keywords and the supporting words, and both of which end in a call to action, because that allows Google to choose between them. And it gives you much more control over what it's showing, rather than allowing it to dig down into your content when you're looking at the longer tail keywords. So if you're smart enough, if you've got the time to do it, this double meta description of 200 odd characters each is really nice trick. But if you get it wrong, you get what Aiden was saying earlier on, which is too much content that doesn't really make much sense. And critically, you lose the call to action. There you go.
Thank you so much, Jason. That was really interesting. I didn't know that we can have like multiple descriptions and Google can pick according to whatever they feel is perfect for the page. And that's really interesting.
Sorry, just to clarify.
But I think that sounds a bit grey-headish.
No, sorry. I don't mean two meta descriptions in the head. I mean one meta description divided into two distinct sentences, because the full stop allows
that
Google
way,
to
of course, yeah.
So it's not great.
I was wondering, I mean, what he's talking about, like two meta description. Really, I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing this. So yeah, now it's all clear. Thank you so much for that, Jason.
Nitin, I just wanted to add one more thing here. So as Aiden mentioned, their link structure is pretty good, because what they have done is like they have done some really good anchor text optimization, and they have pretty interesting share. I don't think I have enough time to share that, but what they have done is they have optimized really good keywords and put a lot of pressure only on their brand keyword. Like if you go to Majestic, you can see a lot of links which are built on programming languages. Like around 44% of the links are built from programming languages. So that's pretty interesting link structure they have. Yeah, that's really good, interesting link structure they have, and they did pretty well. And I wish I can show this to you, but because of the time constraint, maybe probably in the end I'll show you. So that's it from my end. So
cool.
I think
thank you so much, Satish and Aiden and Jason for the lovely stuff. I think they'll be really, really happy with all the findings that you have shared. All right, now without wasting any time, I would like to move to the next website, which is bankbazaar.com, and Satish will be putting some light on that. Satish, all yours now. And you have 8 minutes.
That's not fair.
All right, let's make it 9, yeah? Your time starts now. Satish, are you there? I didn't know someone can commit suicide on this. I think we lost Satish. Maybe we can.
Everybody's a school day.
Yeah, I think we lost Satish, unfortunately. So maybe we can start answering a couple of questions before we getting back. So the question from Pratik Joshi is, why do we have why so many websites use self-canonical URLs on the pages? So what do you think about this, guys? Aiden, you want to take that?
Yeah, more than happy to. I think in truth, we've been talking about canonical a huge amount over a period of time. We used to, of course, obsess about duplicate content and obsess about redirects. And I think, to be honest, it's really very subjective, I think, the use of internal redirects using canonical. I don't think it's always necessarily all that necessary. I think it really is on a case-by-case basis, in truth. I tend not to mess around with it too much unless I'm absolutely certain. I recently had a client who hired a very expensive agency, I'll call it, and they were losing their mind about, posting their content on Medium, and will it be a duplicate if it's on their website, and which one is the canonical, and will Medium do that? And all these sorts of questions kind of came up. But for the most part, they don't need to worry about it, but they do need to think about, hey, what is the original? Where do I want to kind of appoint the credit from a Google perspective? And then just crack on with great content.
Yeah. And I think another reason why people use self-referencing canonical is to avoid a duplicate pages index because of tracking parameters, or maybe if they're running some campaigns or something. So all tracking parameters or all the parameters which are not affecting their page content. So just to, be safe here, they use self-referencing canonical here. So that's another thing that I see from experience.
Cool. I advise my clients to always put the self-referencing canonical, and as you say, Nitin, very rightly, just to be safe. The parameters, especially Bing bot, can go completely bonkers on the parameters, and you see Bing crawling 50,000 pages of these parameters, where Google will stop at 1,000. So yeah, I think for safety's sake, it's really, really important.
Exactly, Jason. That's what I experienced as well. I mean, from then on, it's like kind of, in my blood that when we're talking about a page, it should have self-referencing canonical at least. I mean, if you don't have like duplicate pages, of course, I mean, you can have self-canonical by default.
There's me being
so much, guys.
Roguing against Nitin and Jason.
I would also say it's a similar thing with the robots tag. I find, as an SEO, it's better to have it and be explicit, if only because it makes my job easier. An hreflang, for example, I've got a client who's got it in their hreflang in the sitemap, and I'm asking them to put it in the page because, once again, being explicit in the right place, and also for me, checking makes it much, much easier. And that's all based on this idea of security. Being explicit with Google is vital.
Hello.
Hello, you're back.
Well,
I'm really sorry. My laptop got shut down because of I forgot to charge my laptop. So
no problem, Satish.
So just give me
no problem. But you have like 5 minutes now, so be super quick.
Yes. I think that should be enough. So the main agenda here to discuss is the link quality of these guys. Bank Bazaar. Nitin, the website which we will be discussing about, the third one is Bank Bazaar. So Bank Bazaar is a huge website with over 15 million traffic per month. So what they have done is they have an excellent link quality. I'll just go through the entire site, like what they have been doing and how they have built their link structure and all. But before that, for any website, the first and foremost thing is that, can you just see my screen? I'm just sharing you my screen. Guys, everyone?
Yeah, can see your screen. Yes, perfect.
Okay, so like what I usually focus on any website before starting my audit is I'll just start with the the proper like in the site audits. The manual site audits, I'll go with the site architecture, check their canonicals. I'll just share you this this screenshot with you, so you actually do not worry about the list. Don't be in a rush to copy this. So I'll just share you this link with you. So I'll focus on site architecture, and I'll focus on the technical and the server issues. These are my major on-page things to focus. And the HTML use and analysis. These are the deep insights I'll do. So this is where I'll start my on page. And apart from that, I usually also depend on some other the automated SEO on page tools like Semrush. So this list is actually taken from Semrush, where I crawl and each and every link and see what are the duplicate pages, what are the the 404 pages, and how many are actually failed and how many we can actually fix it. Like how Jason and Aiden covered in their presentation. So Jason covered it like the entire, the list of queries they have to see and the list of errors and warnings they have to, check. So this is the list which we have. Semrush provides all these 211 different types of metrics. So you can crawl your website and you can check each and every one of them. But apart from that, the major thing which which I wanted to focus is, bankbazaar.com has a lot of keywords, and they have implemented a really good strategy on their SEO, which especially the link building, which I will show you right now. So let's go back and see where we can check that. Hold on. I just kept it all open, so probably that's where this got a little messy. So, okay. So we will be focusing on, I thought of discussing all these things. So the link risk and the link worth, the link audits, and all these types of metrics. But we will start with each one of them, and I think I can finish in less than like 3 minutes. Nitin, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes. So first we'll go through bankbazaar.com and see the link risk, because this is an Indian site. You can see that there are 14.5 million traffic, and this is huge, because the smart thing what they have done is they have optimized the most important keywords. Because look at the search volume of this keyword. This has probably like over 6 million views. 6 lakhs views. That's like a huge keyword. And why there are two different keywords is because for the single term there are 2 different pages ranking for the term. So they are getting almost 90% of the traffic from these 2 keywords. Approximately 30% of the traffic from these 2 keywords. And apart from, they are also targeting some really good keywords like SBI net banking and all this. But how they can actually do this, like what kind of a link structure they are following. So if you go to this website, you can see that they have been focusing a lot on content and on the on-page also. Their on-page score is pretty good, because you don't need to crawl over 200,000 pages. They have over 210,000 pages, which is like quite huge to do for any tool, like almost like 260,000 pages. That's quite impossible to the on-page. So what I would rather focus is to focus on the most important categories, to optimize them and to see how their formula has been written. Because usually sites like this write formulas for each and every section page, so that they don't repeat and write for every single section. So that is what we need to focus in this kind of websites. And if you check their meta, the titles are pretty well written, and they have been written with you can see the exact meta description and the meta titles. So they know exactly what they're doing. So when we actually check the link structure, they have been building quite a lot of links from September from the past 5 years. Even from 2012, they have been building like pretty good links, and they have increased the link quality in September 2016. That's where majority of the traffic growth you can see here. That's where the huge spike is. And the backlinks are coming from not their own sites, but they're coming from external sites, because they have a lot of sites on, say, for example, if they have loan section on car loans. So they have a particular section called as car loans. So in India, there is another big website called as Carroll. So Carroll is like pretty big website. So they are getting direct, category-wise, non-anchor text optimized keywords from there. Links from there. That is building a huge traffic for these guys. So almost I'll show you the backlinks. See, look at this backlink, like over 1 million backlinks. And you can see the domains, and the domain quality is also pretty good. Like look at the domains like Autox and the Carroll. This is the huge website. This website traffic is also like close to like 10-15 million. So when they get these kind of quality links, there is definitely huge traffic, in their favor. And I will show you some of the best practices they are doing. Like, look at this search volume. Like, it's around 11.9 million and competing like very good keywords. Like the brand keyword itself has 8 lakh, keywords. But if you look at the quality of the links, almost every backlink is coming from 57 trust flow and like at least above 15. So that's a pretty good link score they have. And there are a lot of different keywords they have used. I'll show you the difference between like no follow and do follow backlink they have. Hopefully it loads quick. Yes. So they have like 411 domains that are coming from high authority sites. And there are almost like 121 no follow links. So they have very good no follow link structure. And they're balancing the do follow and no follow. But if you go back and see their like site-wide links, look at almost 66%, like 66 backlinks are coming from site-wide links, and 934 are like from non-site-wide links. So site-wide is something which is very harmful in the long run if you do not do it right. So try as much as site-wide links and keep it. 66 is also a bit risky, but that's okay because Google will ignore them. Whereas if you see their anchor text optimization, their anchor text is pretty poor. Like they have done some spam in the past. And look at this free high quality HD wallpapers logos in India. So the anchor text is not pretty good. It's not pretty interesting. But what is actually interesting is they have actually built a lot of backlinks on the brand name. Like 14,000 backlinks are being built only on the brand name. So apparently after a while, when people are searching for like Bank Bazaar, their search volume will eventually go to up to like 200,000 or 300,000. That's what the strategy is. But whereas if you check the link quality, they are getting a lot of links from different domains. Like look at this structure. Like they're not getting too many links at one particular source. They're distributing from very high quality link influences. Like look at the overall page quality is good, and 1.26 active million links are coming from 400 and like almost 5,000 different domains. That's not easy. That's like huge. And especially that's much easier when you have been when you've been backed up by like Sequoia Capital and Amazon, because look at their funding. Like they have huge money to spend on link building. So that's exactly what they're doing. They've been funded by Amazon. They've been funded by Sequoia Capital. That's not easy because they can pump in more and more money to get. I don't want to get into controversy saying they might have a PBN, because that's only. You have to dig more deeper to see if they have really are using any private blog network. But I just don't want to go there. So with that, I want to come to the safe practices. The safe practices, in general, what you have to do is you should avoid
Satish, last 30 seconds, yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Last 30 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the safe practices, what I'll be doing is limit your anchor text optimization to like probably only 7% or 6%. Like for example, in your entire domain, I wouldn't recommend you to focus on any anchor text more than 7%. And do not get backlinks from same IP. Try to get it from different IP, and also try to get active backlinks from guest posts and high authority blog links like media backlinks, and balance your do follow and no follow. If you're getting a no follow backlink from a quality site, that's still okay. And push your blog into like media sites like Forbes and Huffington Post and all. So they need not be paid every single time. You can still go ahead and write for them and get a backlink. And do invest on Wikipedia links, though some of them are like really. Some people really say that no follow is not worth it, but it is worth it. Like go to Wikipedia pages like Q&A websites like Yahoo and Quora will definitely add a lot of value. And limit your anchor text optimization, as I said, and do not. I would say these are like the booby traps where directories and bookmarks and profile links and natural link, and these unnatural links will help you for a while. But after that, you will really get trapped into the eyes of Google. So that is really a big booby trap which you have to avoid, and try to be as much as PR and media possible, because Google know that when there is a news going out, they know that something big is happening in the company, like in your website. So that's where when you go ahead and build some little gray hat backlink, so Google will not catch you. So these guys have done a very good job, like Bank Bazaar, by building very consistent links and keeping them very, very safe from Google's eyes. Though they have bad links, but still that can be covered with a lot of trustworthy links they have. So that's it from my end. So I think if you have any doubts, let me know. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. You can stop sharing your screen now.
Yes,
All right.
that
Thank you so much,
was
Satish,
fast.
once again. And
Yeah.
well, there's another good news for this website owners or SEOs that so Jason just confirmed that they have knowledge graph already there. So good job, guys. Keep rocking there. All right. So now I think we're running out of time, but I'll take one question which is very generic and probably will answer a lot of things that people have in their heads. So the question is about from Sadashiv Rao. The question is like, what are the SEO checklists for 2018? So what are the things that people should keep in mind while they are working on their SEO strategy for 2018? So probably you can share, all of you can share your favorite SEO thing for 2018 on the one. So Jason, you can start.
Yeah, great, thanks. This for me is a really easy question. In 2018, you need to start explaining to Google who you are, proving who you are, what you do, and that you're the best at it. So we're looking at understanding and credibility. You need to communicate, to convince, and a lot of that goes through schema markup, HTML5, keeping the context of your site really well focused, and categorizing your content. There you go.
Thank you so much, Jason. And Satish, what do you think?
Yes. Okay. What I would think is like, the biggest checklist, the checklist should come from your link perspective, like keeping things very neat and clean. So do not try to over optimize for anything. And I would definitely make another session where we specifically talk about the 2018 checklist. But for now, focus on natural links and keep yourself away from Google penalties, especially the manual ones. So do not try to build anything unnatural. That's it.
Thank you so much, Satish. And Aiden, golden words from you, sir.
I'm going to kind of wrap a few in together, completely different from Jason and Satish's point. My big obsession, of course, is the content end of things. Google makes it super clear that great content wins the game in the end. Write and create for your audience, and all else follows. Technical, of course, supports that, makes it all so. But I think the content, the titles, the meta description, just making it, building a platform, building a website for human beings as well, is my big takeaway for 2018, because I think in some ways we've spent too long on checklists and too little, I guess, on empathy and actual value delivery.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much, Aiden. Well, that was wonderful. I mean, we audited 3 websites, answered a few questions, but there are a lot of questions which are unanswered here. So guys, apologies once again, but you can reach out to any one of us on LinkedIn or Twitter. I think we all are very active there. So if you have questions which are not answered here, so feel free to reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to answer. Yeah. So thank you so much once again for the wonderful response. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope we managed to add some value for you guys and make it worth 1 hour, listening to us. Thank you so much once again. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.